This is all in order. What the heck is this?
Well, there we are. We have Jay, we have Martin, and we have John. That's good to see. Is Barbara with us this evening as well?
Yes, she is. She's
Good.
down the end.
All right, thank you very much. Well, then let's get started, please. Hello, everyone. My name is Steve DeYoung. I chair this Yarmouth Zoning Board of Appeals. This May 25, 2023. As many of you have heard before, if you bothered to watch our program, I'm required to read into the record the following statement. We will now convene the May 25 meeting of the Yarmouth Zoning Board of Appeals as required by Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, entitled, An Act Relative to Extending Certain COVID-19 Measures adopted during the state of emergency and as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the public are able to attend this meeting either in person or via the alternative public access. And for those of you at home, that includes member participation. So members of our public may watch the meeting both live or on channel 18, or watch and participate in the meeting hosted in the Zoom platform. Our meeting notice provides necessary instructions to join the meeting via Zoom. Please note the audio, video, and screen sharing functions will be disabled for all attendees. You may request to participate by using the raised hand function when called upon. With that, let's open it up by calling a roll call. We have John Mantoni.
Here.
Jay Frapery.
Here.
Dick Martin.
Here.
Sean Igo.
Here.
And I, Steve DeYoung, am here. I also want to make note that sitting on the panel tonight is one of our newest members anyway. That is Barbara Murphy, who is joining us tonight, and hopefully for many more meetings to come as an alternate member. And with that, let's get right to the agenda if we could. Welcome, Barbara, by the way, and we're awfully delighted to have you join us.
Happy to have a woman. Happy to have a lady on board.
Well, I'm not gonna go there. Thank you all very much for joining us, whoever you may be. So we have the first is and please forgive me on names here, Iwa Argo, trustee of the Seacrest, I guess it is, a Secret Realty Trust, located at 2 Smith Road in South Yarmouth, Mass. That property is located in the zoning district R40. Our applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to sections 104.3.2, subparagraph 2 of the zoning bylaws, or on the alternative, for a variance pursuant to sections 203.5 of the same bylaws, seeking front and rear setback relief so as to add a mudroom in the front and deck in the rear. Lisa Sherman, okay, fine. Please, whoever's appearing on behalf of the petitioner, please let us know who you are and proceed with your presentation.
Yes, hi, I'm Eva Argo, and I'm the trustee of the Secret Realty, located on 2 Smith Road, as you mentioned. Yes, I want to add like mudroom in front, and it's because it's 30 feet from the front of the road. I have to ask for permission. It's a corner lot. The other side should be okay within 30 feet, but the front of on the Smith Road is less than that. And then I want to add on a floating deck, nothing high, just a ground level type thing, floating dock.
All right, thank you very much. So we're going to now invite members of our board to ask questions of you if they have any. So we'll start with Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin, any questions of our petitioner?
So the deck's going to be 3.1 feet apparently from your rear line, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that's going to be a low deck? Is it considered a structure by the building department if it's over I'm
They
getting a
said it
shaking
is.
head from the back, so, okay.
Yes.
So that is a structure. So normally 20 feet would be required there, apparently. So we're looking for a pretty hefty relief on that part. Not so much in the front and the front stoop I don't have as much problem with, but I'm a little concerned about the deck being that close to the rear line. But I don't have any other questions at this point.
I just want to say that the neighbor behind me.
Yeah, I did see
wrote
that
the-
you
yeah.
have their okay, so, thank you.
All right, Mr. Frapery, any questions of our petitioner?
No, I did see the property. You have a fence also right behind where the deck is going to be, I believe.
Yes.
But other than that, I just had the same questions that Mr. Martin had, so I'm good.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mantoni.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the previous two board members. That is awful close to the rear lot line. With regards to the stoop in front where you're gonna put your entry, how high are those stairs? Do you know?
I know that the stairs are not that high, but they just, I had a health inspector come in and they said they don't even have to have a railing because the stairs are, I think like 20, like the platform to the door is 20 feet, 20 inches.
Just
Yeah,
less than 30 inches? Okay.
yes.
No, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Igo.
Yes, good evening. Where is the mudroom going?
In front, like if you're looking at the house where the door is, just, there's a staircase, existing staircase right now, so I just want to pretty much put it on that platform that's already existing and just extend it a little bit, so there's a platform to the entry and one steps. So it's extending by one step pretty much.
So where you have it listed as foyer, that's where you're gonna put your mudroom? You have a site plan that lists that area as a foyer, I believe.
Let me see. Yes, that's what they said, the proposed foyer and stoop.
Okay.
Yeah, that's already 8 feet by 4. There's a platform and the 2 staircase, and the 2 staircase will have to be extended to accommodate the building codes, and then there will be one more step in front of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Stoop there now, it's already poured cement.
So you're coming out 8 feet on that then, huh?
No, there's already the
8 feet
platform for
wide.
the,
I'm sorry, you're coming out 4 feet. I see that. Okay. That's really all the question. I will say I have some concerns on that rear deck as well. And that would be 15 feet you'd need to be off the back there because that's actually a sideline setback, not a rear setback, just so we're all clear.
Is that it,
That's
Mr. Igo? Okay, I'm not clear. When constructed, how far will the deck be off of the rear property line? Very simple.
3.1, I believe.
3.1 feet, is that I see that as a side measurement there. I'm not seeing, maybe it's just that my computer screen isn't big enough, but
yeah, it seems like because the deck is showing from the house to the fence, on one part it's 21.3 and the other one, so it's one point will be 4 feet, one will be 3.1 because it's going on an angle, I guess, the fence of the neighbors.
Yeah. The numbers are just in a different location based on, where they can be seen, I think, and.
just give me a second, please. All right, now tell me about the front, please. There are going to be 3 steps in total.
No, there will be one step, and then there's gonna be a platform that has to be required 36 based on the door, and that's gonna be the door after that. So there's gonna be only one step, and one step to the platform.
So 2 steps.
I guess, yes.
All right. And so how much of the structure, the home, will be pushed towards the street? And when construction is finished, how much closer will it be to the street? I'm not talking about the platform, I'm not talking about the stairs. I just want to know about the platform, the structure.
The door itself, it will be 4 feet closer to the street.
Will be closer to the road.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions. Thank you very much for answering them. Sorry that I want to keep my voice up so everybody can hear me there, and I apologize if I'm coming across too loud. So
Mr.
does
Chairman,
any,
can I ask just one more question of the petitioner?
of course,
The stairs that you're going to use in the front, is that going to be a precast step cement?
Right now, they're already cement, so yes, I have to just extend it
Okay,
the one
all right,
step
that's all.
cement, yeah.
Okay. That would not count into the setback, just so we're clear on that. Only if it was made out of wood. When they're cement or concrete, they're not considered into the setbacks.
Okay.
you know how I feel about front setbacks, that's all.
Oh, I know about
Know
that.
the neighborhood pretty well, but in any event, let's ask our audience. I'm sorry, Ms. Murphy, would you have any questions of our petition that you might like to pose? Okay, so does anyone in our audience care to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please go to the lectern, tell us who you are, where you live, and what you'd like to tell us. And seeing none, does anybody in our audience care to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please go to the microphone at the lectern, tell us who you are and what you'd like to say. And I see none, so we now close it to the public input on the petition. We open it up to board discussions and deliberations. Let's go in reverse order here. Mr. Igo, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I think the front mudroom area, I could go along with that. They're not meeting the 30 feet right now, but the 4 feet that they're coming out, I think that's a fairly reasonable request. The stairs, they don't need our relief for that, only the mudroom. In terms of the deck out back, I think 3 feet off the back lot line is too close. I would need that to come back to, well, what's the deck gonna be, 18 feet? I really don't know that I could support anything going out more than 10 feet. So that would be my support. You'd have to cut 8 feet off that. But I'm willing to discuss that with the board, but that's my general thoughts on that.
All right, well, thank you. And Mr. Antoni, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd agree with Sean. I think the rear deck line, 3 feet, is really close. And if we could scale that deck size back, I think it'd be more agreeable to the board. And again, with the front stoop, it's just a concrete poured step right now. And you're just gonna put a closed entryway on there, really. And I don't really have a big problem with that. That's it.
Thank you,
Those
Mr.
are my
Braithwaite.
I agree. I think if anything, the deck maybe they could change the deck so it's longer and not as deep, and at least get back to maybe a 10-foot setback or something in that range. That's all I had.
And you, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, I'd say the same. I have no trouble with the small foyer. Smith Road's a small dead-end road, and I think that would make the front of the house look better, actually. On the deck, I know people, I also would agree that I think that should be set back further. Some people have been saying 10 feet, which would be fine. I'd be even comfortable with as little as 6 feet, because that would have been when this house was built, that would have been the setback or side setback that would apply here at the time. So I would even be comfortable with as little as 6 feet, but 10 feet would be even better. And if the deck could go more the other direction and maintaining a better rear setback, that would be a good thing.
Well, thank you. This is an odd situation because we usually are going the exact opposite way of saying no to front setbacks. But sure, why not in the backyard? What do we care? Well, I care in this instance. I think it's 3.1 is a ridiculously too close proximity to the fence, to the property line. For one thing, I mean, I don't know how firemen would get around it if they needed to, built right up against the fence. I don't know how. To me, it's just we allow rebuild decks that are in nonconformity, or even an extension of those, but not to the extent where we're taking such a giant leap forward as to be remaining at 3.1 feet. On the front, I'm persuaded by what I'm hearing from my other board members. I don't really care the distance. I do. I'm sorry. I don't care about the fact that the distance is getting closer to Smith Street. I do care about it in the majority of cases, but I think Dick Martin expressed something that is right on point. It's a wonderful way to break up the front line of this home, which needs some breaking up because it's so long, and so it will be very aesthetically pleasing when completed, in my opinion. So I think that I can support that relative to so much of the relief that speaks to the front setback relief. As to the rear, it has to be at least 6 feet off the property line. And quite honestly, I think we ought to just split it right in two and say 6 to 10, make it 8 off the property line to the rear, and then and be in conformity with side setback requirements. Does anybody care to discuss that further, or do you want to just proceed to somebody perhaps thinking of a motion?
I think personally, I think 8 feet is too close to that lot line. That really represents a rear lot line, although it's a side lot line. That's the rear of the house that faces that. If you build that right up to the fence, you're going to be right in the neighbor's yard right there. That's a living area that people are going to be out on.
Yeah, I think you missed my point. I meant take 8 feet off of the proposed deck width.
Oh, that was my suggestion.
To 10, bring it down to 10 feet.
That would be my thought. The deck no go further out than 10 feet, and resulting would be about 12 feet off that line, or 11. Correct?
Okay. Anybody want to have more discussion on that issue before proceeding to a vote, to a motion? All right, not hearing anybody. Is anybody prepared to make a motion
I'd
concerning
like to make a motion that we approve the special permit as requested with the following conditions: that the rear deck can be no closer than 11 feet from the rear lot line.
and relative to the front that just as prayed for, the relief be granted?
Yes.
I'll second it.
And that was Mr. Martin?
Yep.
All right, on that motion so made with the sole condition being that the deck be no closer than 11 feet to the rear property line, does the board care to have any discussion before moving it along to a vote? In hearing none, we'll do it by roll call. We'll go Mr. Martin.
Vote me. Aye.
Mr. Frapery?
Aye.
Mr. Mantoni?
Aye.
Mr. Igo?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that carries unanimously. And back to our petitioner, if we could, please. So you understand, what will happen is I'll draft a decision, and then, I'm sorry, I'll draft a decision, and then it will be filed with the town clerk's office. That town clerk filing, the day of filing starts a so-called appeal period. 20 days must elapse before that petition is deemed granted, there being no appeal, of course. And that then would need, the physical document would need to be brought to the Barnstable Registry of Deeds, and recorded there with proof of recordation being returned back to Ms. Fallon. And relative to the variance, is somebody prepared to make a motion to allow that to be withdrawn without prejudice?
So moved.
And that was,
Me,
Jay.
it's Sean.
thank you. Second,
I'll second, it's Jay.
thank you, Jay. Yeah, I can't see the full screen here from time to time. I apologize. All right, the board, not needing any discussion on this particular motion to allow the withdrawal of the variance request without prejudice, please, members, by voice vote, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
It carries unanimously. So that will be withdrawn without prejudice and the special permit granted as indicated. Brings us to our next matter. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Understand everything?
Yeah,
So can I file a permit, or I have to wait? I didn't understand that, so.
Hey, Mr. Grillis can help you.
Sure, I've got to draft something up and it will be filed with the town clerk's office. And once it's filed, then you'll be able to get your permit
Mr.
after
Grills
it's
is gonna
been
ask-
recorded at
answer
the
your
register.
questions.
Let's go to petition 5022, that Akaya Sanaa, trustee of the Peggy Peckrin Sanaa 210 Trust. That property is located at 4 Television Lane, West Yarmouth, Massachusetts. Property located in the zoning district R25. This evening, our applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to zoning bylaw section 104.3.2 subparagraph 2 and or a variance under 203.5 of the zoning bylaws for front setback relief to raise and replace a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling and to increase the height. And it's my understanding that Down Cape Engineering will be presenting this. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Why don't you identify yourselves? Though we may know you, identify yourself for the public, please.
Sure. Good evening, Chairman DeYoung and members of the Board of Appeals. My name is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and a civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport, and helping the builder, Chris Kenny, and the owners, the Sanayers, out with hopefully a pretty straightforward ask tonight. This is down in the Radio City area of town. It's a low-lying area. They have had historic puddles in the area for as long as I can remember. 25 years ago, we were measuring puddles in that area, and they've gotten a little bit better, a little bit worse. But in this particular area, it's not particularly bad. A little bit to the east, they've got some ponding. Not specifically germane to the subject, except that we did have an abutter write an impassioned letter asking to, not create any further problems with the puddling. And I would be pleased to say that we are, instead of making it worse, we're going to be making it better with this project. The rear yard is being leveled off up at elevation 9 and being perfectly level, so any of that water there that would sheet off during a big storm instead will infiltrate into the ground. And we propose no less than 3 dry wells all around the house to pick up the gutters and downspouts and infiltrate that roof runoff directly into the ground, whereas the existing conditions, it could potentially sheet out to the street and contribute to those the very low streets flooding, especially down to the east of us. So there will be less water coming off the site after, if you do allow this relief, than would be if we didn't move forward with the proposal, would be my representation here tonight. The home is, as I mentioned, it's in the flood zone. The sea level's rising slowly, and there's a concern. This whole area was wiped out by a hurricane many, many years ago, and somehow got rebuilt probably much too low. But we're fixing that. We're going up above the design flood elevation, which is the base flood elevation of 11 plus 1. So it'll be 12.0 concrete, all water-resistant construction below that. So even if we get the 100-year event, the floodwaters will simply enter in under the foundation and exit with new smart vents that allow for the equalization of water underneath the building. And instead of having the whole floor and all the belongings floating around and being wrecked, they'll be safely up above probably 13 or so feet above the 0 NAVD 88 elevation, which is safely above even the 100-year flood elevation. So we feel for that reason it's a good project. It is a snug site, as many of these are. It's 7764 square foot, but I think we're being respectful. You can ask up to 25% building coverage. We're at 18.4, and that even includes a deck. So we're not pushing the envelope. And if you look at the existing conditions plan to the left, you can see that there's a big patio, which doesn't count towards lot coverage on residentials. But if you did include that, I don't think we're going up hardly any square foot. Probably it's a wash over what's there now in terms of impervious coverage. So not an unreasonable request, I think. The reason that we're here is the front yard setback. Well, to finish my thought, the rear yard, we're raising up the septic, brand new Title V, full compliance with Title V, and we're getting the full 5-foot separation of groundwater. That does require 20-foot to the full basement. And so the house really wants to get pushed away from that a little bit. The front pergola right now is 23.7 feet off the street. And the only thing that's going to be close to that is a set of stairs, which by necessity, as I mentioned, we're going from the ground, which is about 5, up to the first floor, which is about 13. So it's a healthy set of stairs, but that's 23.8. So it's another 1/10 of a foot further back from the existing pergola. If I did my arithmetic correctly there. And the main portion of the house is nearly compliant. The west side is compliant, and the east side is maybe 2 feet into the setback, but that's in an area where the pergola projects already by quite a bit. The building is compliant with the new height regulations, the 33.5 feet instead of 35, I believe is what that says. I can double check. It's a 3-bedroom design. It's not a huge home, but it is a little more usable upstairs. So it'll be a 2-level structure. So we're under the 25%. We're barely into the front setback. Again, we should be 30. The existing is 23.7. We're going to be 23.8 with the stairs, and now there's a number 28 with the main portion. So only a couple of feet into that front yard setback. It is important to note here, if we're looking at specifics, that on the western side, there is some nonconformities that we're eliminating. Right now, the bulkhead is 13.4 feet off that west side line, and the house is 14.4, so both of those are into the 15, and you look at the new one, is the main house is 16, and the closest thing is a corner of a stair, which is 15.4, so we've cleaned up that nonconformity over there. So if it helps you make a decision, there's some nonconformities that are being eliminated, and hopefully you'll find that the one out front is not more detrimental to the neighborhood and could be considered as part of a special permit. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to John first, please. John, any questions of Mr. Ojala?
Yes, hi. The square footage you said was 17 or 1,800?
In terms of,
The living area of
I don't know that I quoted that. It's 18.4% is the lot coverage. I don't think we usually look at floor area ratio in Yarmouth, but I don't know that I have that figure in front of me, but
That's all right. I think on your plan here, it's 1,880.
okay.
First and second floor, 940 each. I was just curious as to how much larger the house was gonna be
Okay.
versus what exists. But it looks like a nice home. And I don't, 1,800 square feet, I don't think is, too outrageous. So, other than that, I don't really, it looks like you handled all the, all the setbacks and as well as you could, it appears to me. So, I don't have any further questions.
And thank you. You do bring up a thought to my mind, is that here we don't have a basement, whereas most houses of 1,800 square foot would probably have a full basement to put all their stuff. Here, we've got to make closets and make room for it. So that does really cut down on the effective square footage on this particular site.
All right, Jay, any questions of our petitioner's representative?
How many current bedrooms are there in the house, the current house?
Current is a 2-bedroom, and we're going to 3, which is the minimum.
So it's
well,
a two-bedroom, bedroom septic, and you're going to 3 and 3?
Yeah, the old one was a 2-bedroom, and, but there's room to put a 3 on there with a full reserve and no variances, so that's what we're proposing.
This, the backyard, which is gonna be the whole septic system, you're going up 8 feet on that, is it? or
So
9
the
feet?
elevation is 9, right now it's about 6 at the highest, so about 3 feet, but then on the low side, it would probably be more like 4 feet. But it'll look okay, because it'll be a nice level area, and we'll put a nice finish
Basically-
on the brick.
Basically, the whole backyard will be elevated.
Yeah,
pretty much.
yeah, yeah.
All right, and it looks like the height's fine, and it's just under the limit, and I agree the setbacks look like they're improved. The house basically shifted, what, like 10 feet to the right?
Yeah, fair enough, yeah,
And then,
yeah, just
A
to get
little
it out of that setback on the west.
and it's a little bit bigger, so I don't have any other questions, thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Mr. Martin, Dick, any questions?
So the shed's going away, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I have any questions, as long as the drainage is being kept on site one way or another, so as to allay the fears of the abutter. And, you're becoming mostly more conforming as opposed to more non-conforming and dealing with a small lot. And I don't have any other questions, nor do I seem to have any real problems.
Thank you very much. Mr. Igo?
Good evening, Dan. I'm not sure if you can answer this question. I'm looking at the front elevation of the home itself, and it appears that there's a lot of exposed foundation. Do you know if there's any plan to cover that exposed concrete?
We'd be happy to have a condition, or we would absolutely do that. Yeah, onto the right of the stairs, you can see the clapboards are brought down over the front facade, and we'd do a similar thing on the west side, and then probably do a finish on that, so it didn't look like bare concrete below that. So, yes.
So you know that it's like a 1x12, like a shiplap almost, that people are using these days to cover the concrete. You're aware of that, right?
Yeah, hardy board, yeah, that might be a good choice.
Something to cover that, so if we made that a condition, that would be acceptable.
Yes, absolutely.
Exposed foundation there. That's really all I had. I would make just one comment that this is pretty much the way that this subdivision is being redeveloped and has been redeveloped now for a long time. All these houses are in a flood zone, and so anybody who wants to do anything is going to have to go up. So that's just the way it is. So I think we have seen a lot of these so far. I think we'll continue to see them until the entire subdivision is built out. I do think it's fairly reasonable. I agree with the petitioner that they are kind of decreasing many nonconformities. And quite frankly, I think it's going to look fairly nice in the backyard, elevated, and they're trying to do their best to dress it up. So I think it's a good project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Before I go on, I do want to point out, and I'll read it into the record unless they're here and would prefer to speak. But could I know now, please, if Ronald and/or Nolene Servin are with us this evening in person? All right, not seeing anybody raising their hand. So if you are there, I'm going to read the letter, and that's all. We don't get to read and talk. So the construction that's being proposed, I think, is actually going to help any water that attributable to this particular lot to stay more focused on lot. It's running underneath a structure now instead of stopped by the structure on all four corners. And that is a tough road. It really, really, very, very tough road. My heart breaks to anybody who lived down there. But I don't think that this is going to hurt it. I think it's going to help it. And the issue of the street catch basins, I don't think there's much we can do about that. We can ask that the petitioner do as much remedial work on site as they reasonably can. And the indication from Dan is that that's going to be done by way of some catch basins on site. I just want to read the letter of Ronald and Nolene Servin into the record before then calling upon members of the public either speak in favor or against. And so it begins with a received date of May 24 and an indication as follows. To whom it may concern, we are writing to you in reference to this petition with the identified petitioners. We seek a variance of a front setback relief to replace pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. We are strongly against the petition and ask that they do not approve it. I'm sorry, you do not approve it. Further development in this area will only exacerbate the current major flooding that occurs on this specific street. During the past years that we have lived here, it's a small print, I apologize, here is full time, your approval of these in this neighborhood to build larger homes on small lots, all increasing the grade of the property, has resulted in flooding and damage to our home. The expectation of those at the Zoning Board of Appeals that we just should live with this or rebuild ourselves is not a way to treat one of the few year-round residents of this neighborhood. Well, for as long as I've been on the board, I don't think we've ever taken that position. So I will take exception to that. The continuation of approving large homes and increasing the existing grade of the property at the same time on postage stamp property lots. Where did that go to? Needs to stop so as to curtail any future impact. Please take our plea into consideration when reviewing this petition. At a minimum, can you curtail the increase of any grading of the property to limit the impact of flooding? For your references, please see pictures of recent flooding. And Dan, let me ask you on that question posed by the servant. Is that something that the grade can be brought back from the street so that the water from this lot is more contained on this lot as opposed to running off into the street?
I would answer that it's quite level right now. So it's only about 6 inches and 28 feet, a very gentle pitch. And we're dealing with a lawn surface and a gravel driveway, a pervious gravel driveway. So I don't think we can do much better than that. But what we can do is take all that roof runoff and put it in a dry well. So we are doing that. And so, and this tends to be one of the higher portions, but certainly there'll be less runoff coming off post-development than pre-redevelopment.
All right, and then attached to their letter are various photos showing, inclusive of very recent flooding on the street as recently as March. And we certainly thank the servants for their input. Does anybody in our audience care to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please come to our lectern. Seeing none. Okay, you got to walk right up because I can't see the hands on the small picture. I'm sorry.
He's coming. Just say who you are and.
Hi, my name is Ralph Decker. Just have a couple of questions about the plans. If you're putting a structure for the water to flow through and it's 11 feet high, what's the direction of the current water flow now? Is it a underwater? Is there underwater springs there? Is it water being directed to the street and expecting that the town sewage is supposed to capture all that water and run it off?
Through the chair, I could respond.
Well, please do. Yeah, he's asking
Sure.
it.
So the situation with that, it's a what you call a coastal flood event. And so that would be generally, a category, in that era of a 3-year Category 4 hurricane. There would be a huge tidal surge that would inundate the entire area, and there would be 6 or 7 feet of water over the entire road, salt water. You could have bass swimming and so forth all over the whole area. So that would simply come in, and the concern is if you have a wall and it's watertight and you put say 6 or 8 feet of pressure against it, it could cave in and the house could fall over. So to prevent against that, you equalize the pressure by putting in these special smart vents, one for every 200 square foot of enclosed area, that flip open and allow the water to gush in, and it equalizes the water on both sides. So at the end then, to answer your question, the seawater would flow back out. Now, you would have a puddle that would dwarf any of these, you'd be up in the middle of the windows, but slowly it would go out. There's Marsh's system to the north, Lewis Pond, it would drain that way, and it would drain probably west across to Lewis Bay and then south to Nantucket Sound, and the tide subsides pretty quickly, you know, feet per hour, right back down. And then the water just comes back out, and you vacuum, you know, blow dry it off, and you're good to go. If you don't raise your house up, of course, you're in a real kettle because you just ruined your furnace, and your insulation is soaking wet, and you got mold and everything else. So the new codes, you're much better off to sustain an event like that. But you're talking about a massive tidal event that comes in and then goes back out if you ever get flooding up in that range. And
So
there
you're
have been a
saying-
number of events that are close to that, but never that high.
So basically, if Mother Nature took its toll, most of the neighborhood's going to be flooded anyways.
You should know, at one time, the hurricane of, I believe it was 46, took this whole neighborhood and wiped it out, and it was rebuilt, but there wasn't a house left on it after a huge hurricane. So it's definitely a very vulnerable area.
And my final question is, just out of curiosity, with the 3 dry wells that you're putting in, size of the dry wells and depth, and is there any drainage from the dry wells themselves going out anywhere?
So the way we do that, we do a very shallow system. You generally try and do about 5% of the area drained into a dry well, so that's the way we size them. Right now, we've got about 4-foot dry wells. They can't be particularly deep in this area because you hit groundwater, and, you know, factually, I think that puddle is at least half groundwater. It comes up in the high season and goes down so slowly. I think it's the true groundwater, and the road should be raised, and the houses with it would be the solution to that. But, yeah, we do the best we can with what we have. So in the higher areas of the lot, you can go down a couple of feet, you get good sand, and you put a stone-filled trench, and that should infiltrate the vast majority of the roof runoff into the ground there. If you were going to catastrophic event, it would back up and would sheet onto the water. But during huge events like that, you might expect some coastal storm flowage anyway, so it would be a drop in the bucket at that point.
Thank you.
Does anybody else in our audience care to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the microphone. Seeing none, does anyone care to speak in opposition to the petition? Seeing none, we now close it to the public input. I'm sorry, Ms. Fallon, is there anybody at home that's interested in this petition? And if so, anybody at home, please raise your hand, the electronic hand.
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Now we close it to the public input to the petition, and we open it up to board discussions and considerations of the petition. Let's just go with you, Sean. What do you think about the request for relief here?
I think it's
Recognize
very,
that if we give relief, that relief is also by separate motion going to include the withdrawal of the variance without prejudice.
yes. I think it's a reasonable request. Again, we've approved a lot of these in this particular subdivision. Dan is correct. Everybody's got to build up. You have to build up to meet the code. I believe, I don't think you can build that low anymore. But the house itself really isn't that big. It's 1,800 square foot. I think any of the abutters, should they decide that they want to rebuild themselves, are going to build a similar home. If you drive around the streets in there, most of the houses have been rebuilt in there, and they're all of similar size and style of the house that's proposed here. Again, I think they've done their best to decrease any nonconformities. The way Dan has explained, they've put a lot of thought into what they're going to do with the runoff, realizing that there is a drainage problem in the street and trying to mitigate that as much as they can. But I think all in all, I think they meet the criteria of the bylaw. I certainly don't think this is going to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. In fact, I think it's consistent and in keeping with the houses that are in the neighborhood. So again, I think they meet the criteria. I plan on supporting it, and I suggest the board support it as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Dick, your thoughts?
I have no issues. I think it's a logical request to build a new house. It's not overwhelming and meets certain setbacks better, and I believe takes care of a lot of the drainage questions that might otherwise be a problem.
Jay?
No, I agree. I had a chance to drive around, and it seems like it's consistent with the houses that have been updated, and it looks like this house, certainly would be a nice addition. I think the raising of it is necessary, and if it does anything to alleviate groundwater rise, that'd be great. But I think it's a good submission.
Thank you. John?
I would agree with everyone's comments. It looks like a really nice home, and the plan is well done, so I plan to support it. Thank you.
Well, as do I. I think that when we look at these properties that are getting older and they wish to become updated in facilities, they are confronted with a new reality, and that reality is aggressive FEMA requirements and because of flood zones and the like, and it's a good thing. I think it's a very good thing. We've been out of some other states in the south of Massachusetts, and you can see where ground level structures within flood zones are very often wiped out, and even minor hurricanes. So it's good to see that these new restrictions are in and they need to be taken into consideration. What's interesting to me here is that there is so very little relief being requested. I mean, it's just because of the need for staircases out front. It's just a very small part of a staircase addition. And so an encroachment within the front setback. And I do see it as de minimis, as I think Sean had indicated. It's just, it meets all the criteria for why we should grant these as special permits. And so I am going to support it as well. Is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I'll move to approve petition 5022 as requested.
With the conditions.
With the condition,
The
which condition was
the foundation coverage.
Cover the exposed concrete on the front facade with
That's right.
a height of order equal to
Yeah,
maybe a
with
12-inch
with the
reveal or something.
exposed concrete coverage, so it looks better than just exposed concrete.
Sure, yeah, and if we could have maybe 8 to 12 inches of concrete, I think that would be,
That's fine.
considering the flooding. Yeah.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Who did?
Jay?
Okay.
Thank you, Jay. Well, let's indicate it. Is it, we're going to say 8 to 12 inches? Is that it?
The maximum concrete reveal on the front facade, sure.
Sure, okay. Did the board care to have any discussion on that motion made? And of course, Dan, your request will be to be allowed to withdraw the request for variance. Is that correct?
Absolutely, if it looks like we're going forward with a special permit, I sure would appreciate that, thank you.
All right. So does the board care to have any discussion on the motion made and conditioned? And hearing none, then let's do it by roll call. Sean?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. It carries unanimously. As you know, Dan, a decision will be drafted, filed with the town clerk's office. 20 days must elapse before that's considered the final decision. Assuming there be no appeal, the granted special permit would then need to be brought to the Registry of Deeds for recording. And now our next bit of business is that we're going to deal with the variance request.
Move to allow the petitioner to withdraw the request for variance without prejudice.
I'll second that.
And again, the second was?
Jay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Yours and Dick's voice sometimes sound so close. All right, I'm assuming we don't need any discussion on that, and we'll do it by voice vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Did I hear you weigh in, Sean?
Yes, aye.
Those opposed? It carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Ojala. Good to see you as always.
Thank you for your careful consideration, appreciate it.
Brings us to our next petition, that of petition number 5023, Shrim Incorporated, doing business as the Freebird Motor Lodge. Property located at 553 Route 28, West Yarmouth, Mass. That property is located in the B2 zoning district. Our applicant seeks to overturn the decision of the building commission and/or permit pursuant to 303.13 or 303.5.5.2, or in the alternative, to grant a variance under 303.5.5.2 to install a 22.5 foot by 17.9 foot sign. Gentlemen, correct me, weren't you just here on the same matter?
We were here, I believe, 2 months ago. We had 2 requests on buildings, and we took your advice and took one of them down because we understand that, you know, as you guys had mentioned, the sign code was recently implemented. We didn't want any changes, so we complied. We changed our design and dropped that one.
Okay, so why don't you tell us about this new petition, please?
So the new petition itself, first of all, we don't believe it's a sign. It's on a building that is within our property that is not really visible from the street. And we're actually not advertising our business name on it either. This is very strictly for branding purposes, just to showcase our brand more so and essentially promoting Cape Cod. It's more of a wall where people would take pictures in front of, and this is well within the property, not visible off the street. So we wanted to get an understanding of why it was looked at as a sign when it was within the property itself.
And this wasn't covered by the last time you were here.
We did cover it. You guys had said if it was by itself, you would probably have voted for it. But it had to have reason from the building commissioner on why it was rejected in the first place.
All right, very good. Why don't we just start right with Mr. Martin again, and Dick, you go ahead and ask any questions of our petitioner you may have, please.
Well, if it's the building commissioner's interpretation that this meets the criteria of a sign, which I would agree with, then we're looking at 2 very big signs on buildings, I guess. I mean, I don't necessarily mind the idea of a mural in one sense, especially in the back building where it's not really meant to attract people. But in the front, I would have certainly some issue with it, and I worry about the precedent and, you know, where do you draw the line here? I mean, if somebody wanted to do the same thing and, you know, really promoting the business, this doesn't necessarily really promote the business in terms of naming the motel. But it still meets the criteria of the sign, and unless that definition is changed, we're looking for a very huge sign that we don't typically approve of. So I don't know that I have any other questions. You're looking at the same mural for both buildings?
We're only looking for that back building. We're not
looking for the back
asking for
building now.
anything on the front one.
Okay.
If you notice on
Better about
page-
that, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at page 2, we're only proposing the icon B.
One, okay.
Yeah,
So just B.
yeah.
Yeah.
A is strictly just compliant to whatever the sign code is, and it's been approved already.
Okay.
Just shake it up a little bit. John, any questions about
Yeah.
the
anything
petition?
else?
I know we went back and forth on this last time, whether it's a sign or it's art or and I still don't know the answer. I know the building inspector said it's a sign, so.
I mean, we can interpret the sign code very many different ways, I guess. Not an attorney, so I wouldn't be able to argue that, but our goal here is simply to bring brand awareness and, again, promoting Cape Cod. We know the minute we cross the bridge, we're 50 years behind timeline, right? And we're our theme of our hotel is actually based off Freebird's song from Leonard Skinner from the 70s. So we have a very modern vintage vibe for our hotel. And what we are doing is promoting artists. We're promoting artwork, music, and expression of art. So both of the murals were very important, but we understand and would like to comply with the town, so we dropped the first one. But this is on the inside of the property where no one is seeing it off the street. The only way you're seeing it is if you're a guest. And again, we're not putting our hotel name on it. This is simply promoting Cape Cod. In today's world, we know all the travelers are looking for a unique experience, something that's different, right? We're not 15 years ago where people are looking for a bed to sleep. So in order to attract the newer traveler this day and age, especially in Cape, where most of the travelers are 50, 60 plus years old, we're having a very hard time attracting the crowd under 40. And before we know it, within a decade, it can hurt tourism a lot. So we need to create properties in Cape especially and encourage more developers and or hotel owners to think outside the box to change the product. But
Sir, if I could, I think we went over all of this with your first presentation the last time. I really think the same board members here don't need to hear this yet again. If there's something new you want to add that you didn't point out the last time, you feel free to do that, okay?
okay.
All right, so Mr. Igo, no, I'm sorry, Jay, do you have any questions about the petition?
I don't really have any questions, but, you know, I don't really see this as a sign. It's more of a artwork or a mural, and I guess that's where I'd be the question. I just don't think it's meant to facilitate trying to promote or to advertise the actual facility itself, so, but whether or not that's an issue or not, I guess is something to talk about too, because if it's not a sign and it's mural or art, I'm not sure how best to address that, so I would just lean in that direction for
Good
discussion.
enough, John? John?
What do you say?
John?
Well, I just had I feel better that you eliminated the one right on the road. And, I mean, I guess this is what you're proposing, right? On Cape Time? So, I mean, in how do you, without rehashing the whole thing, this you think is going to attract a younger clientele?
It's not that, it's to tie in the whole story of the hotel. And again, taking pictures and tagging people on there. And when Cape is being promoted, people are seeing where they are, right? And hence the map of Cape Cod, which already exists, by the way, on the building.
Right.
We're just essentially coloring around it.
Okay, thank you.
Now we'll try with you, Sean. Sean?
Yes. Well, I think we've covered this ground before. I think we covered the mural the last time. I'm in agreement with the building department. I'm not going to go against his determination, and we're going to rewrite the sign code here, as we don't like to do here at the Board of Appeals. If they want to change something, the best way to do it is to go to the planning board and then go to town meeting, or try to get your own warrant article on the warrant. I do consider this, though, a repetitive petition, and I would not agree to allow the petitioner to withdraw this petition tonight. I will require it to be a vote up or down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You know, I'm not sure I fully understand it in total in any event. I hear that we're making an effort to promote art. Well, once that art is on there, it's not going to change, or is it? Are you going to have different artists to replace this mural every so often?
No.
Okay, so it's going to be a completed, fixed, and left. Is that
Yes.
a fair way to? I don't see that as a promotion of art. I see that as a design you have on your building. I don't know how that necessarily promotes anything other than the art that you'd like to have shown to the public. And again, I've always felt that when we're looking from the 28 streetscape on properties in the B1, B2, and limited B3 zoning districts, that it is just not appropriate that we do anything other than to abide by the sign code. We have a very comprehensive sign code. It must be changed via the town meeting because we're not going to legislate those changes from this board. We've said it before. We've said it repetitively before. And at least so long as I'm going to vote, my vote will always be to no any significant change in the sign code. And I see this as a very significant change in the sign code. So if I hear it right, well, let me just ask in case anybody should have appeared and want to put in their 2 cents on it. Does anybody wish to speak in favor of this petition?
We have
Come
one.
right over to the microphone. Tell us who you are, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Joseph Manning. Thank you for letting me speak. I've lived in town for 50 years, and I've listened to this conversation now. I wasn't part of the previous petition or that discussion, but I've listened to this discussion tonight. I don't know that I agree that we're trying to uphold some aesthetic on the Route 28 corridor, whether it's in the B1, B2, or limited B3. We've all driven up and down 28 recently, and it's not impressing anyone. And the amount of blight that we have on 28 right now is more than I can ever remember. And as a member, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Economic Development Committee or the Chamber of Commerce, but as a member of both, I think this is exactly the type of investment that we're trying to foster along that corridor. We all know that our tax base has been reduced dramatically over the years and is trending in the wrong direction. Certainly wastewater is going to impact that dramatically, but these innkeepers are making a commitment to our community, and they're investing their own money. And if they're doing that, I think we need to support that. Now, the vehicle that they're choosing has a brand and a style, and it's meant to be an experience. Now, I understand that this wall that's 100 feet off of 28 in the back of the parking lot behind the main building could be debated, and obviously the building commissioners decided that it is a sign, but I don't agree, and I think that it's up to this particular body to use its discretion to understand that when applicants come before them with good ideas, with some energy, with a commitment to stay here and to perhaps buy another motel and refurbish it, that we need to do everything in our power to support that effort. And I'm not talking about rewriting the sign code, but if this was unanimously decided as a piece of art, we wouldn't be talking about the sign code. It doesn't promote the name of the hotel. It doesn't really change the nature of what's already up there, which is a map of Cape Cod. It just provides a fresh take on it, and it promotes an Instagrammable moment that I wholeheartedly agree is going to do more good for the town than if we take petitioners like this and do very little to support their efforts. So I urge this body to reconsider what I think I'm hearing and support this petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak in favor of this petition? Come up, tell us who you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve O'Neill, short-time resident, 5 or 6 years here in the town. And I'm not speaking on behalf of the Community and Economic Development Committee, nor am I speaking on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. However, what I am going to speak on dovetails with a lot of work that they do there. I think before you here tonight is you have some younger folks who are desirous of investing in the community, and they want to take a different approach. In my opinion, that sign that they're talking about being in the rear of the property is not going to affect anything along 28, yet helps these individuals who want to reinvest in the community promote something in a different style, different way that heretofore hasn't been done. As they indicated before, few moments ago, they want to reach out to a different demographic in the community. And that different demographic is looking at ways of attracting themselves to different things that go on in our community through different methodologies. And one of those is using social networks. I know we're got a fine line here between art and signage, but I think, and we're not trying to legislate here, but I do think we ought to give a nod to these individuals who want to invest in this community along a corridor that right now is experiencing some decline. And we have to start somewhere, and these modest steps, along with a bigger step of wastewater, is going to eventually reinvigorate Route 28. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak in favor of this petition? If so, come up to the microphone. Seeing none, does anybody care to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please come up to the microphone.
Mr. Chairman, on the Zoom, there's someone who's raised their hand.
Oh, very fine. In favor or against?
I'm not sure, sir.
So why don't we just invite them in, telling us who they are, and we'll hear what they have to say.
Hi, this is
Hi.
this is Susie Kilmartin. We live on 24 Little Dipper Lane. I'm a professional artist. I have done murals in Hingham and all over the United States. And I absolutely am in favor of this young couple to go ahead and do this. I don't
Okay.
think, I take issue that it's considered a sign since it's not visible from Route 28. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, anybody else in our Zoom audience care to speak in favor or against this? Please indicate by using the raise hand sign.
There's no one else, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good. So we now close it to the public input on the petition. We open it up on to a board discussion, deliberation, perhaps a vote. Before we, I'm going to break with my usual here and say to you, I just want to put my 2 cents in, particularly on the heels of what I've just heard. I think the point is being missed that this would be a legislative change to a sign code that took much thought and that the town, by town meeting vote in the not too distant past, perhaps a decade, voted with very, very great certainty as to what was and was not to be allowed. And we have been consistently asked since then to consider changes to it, which we have resisted over and over again. And instead suggested to everybody that petitions us, merely go to the town meeting or go on a warrant item, or go to the planning board and ask the planning board to incorporate your request into a proposal to be considered at town meeting. And that's the way to do this. So my hope is that somebody will hear that loud and clear and actually undertake that, because I don't think there's anybody here on this board that is against trying to render whatever is appropriate. I do take offense to suggest that Route 28 is the derelict. I think we've made some darn good progress along there. And, it is what it is. I don't know how long anybody else has been here, but I was here back when Patty Page was singing about it. And it hasn't changed a whole bunch from them. We all know that. So we're working hard to accomplish what can only be accomplished by people that want to invest in their businesses and do a good job of whatever the town's vision is. And it is not to see murals building sides along Route 28. That I assure you. So I have nothing else to say. Anybody want to say anything or move? Make a motion?
Well, I'd like to say something, I guess, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay, Mrs. J.
Well, of course.
I don't agree that this is a sign, for one thing, but it is art, and we don't seem to have anything that does regulate that. So in that regard, I guess it's a problem, and that's one of the reasons why I would, even though I'd love to support it, I do think it is something that still needs to go to the planning board, whether the request is to look into modifying the sign code or or looking to put together something that would allow something like this. So I guess that's what I'd like to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frapery. Anybody else care to say anything before we move it along? All right, not hearing any. Is anybody prepared then to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we uphold the decision of the building inspector.
Second.
Who seconded it again?
Dick.
Dick did
Who?
this time. Dick.
Thank you, Dick. Sorry, I was looking away. Does the board care to have any discussion on that before proceeding to a vote?
Only that I have read his letter, his interpretation of the bylaw. I agree with his interpretation, and that's the reason why I am going to vote to uphold his decision.
Anybody else?
I got a question.
Sure.
The reason we are here is because this
Isn't
is
this
in
closed,
our
Mr.
property. It's
No,
in
no,
our
wait,
property
who's
that it's
asking
not
the que-
visible.
Who's
Chairman, this is
asking
the
the question? Sir, who's asking the question?
The
The
petitioner.
petitioner.
Okay, no, it's, we closed it off to everybody, including the petitioners. And we're gonna stay, with the rules we've been implementing all along, which are to then, once we've closed it off, we open up the board discussion, deliberation, and there is a motion on the floor that must be acted upon. It's been seconded, the board has had their opportunity to have input into it, and we've now resolved, anybody's desire to put input into it. And so we're gonna move it along to a vote. And we're gonna start with a vote, a roll call vote, please. Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Frapery?
Aye.
Mr. Mantoni?
Aye.
Mr. Igo?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, that we are upholding the building commissioner's determination. Thank you, gentlemen.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, there's two other forms of relief requested here tonight.
Let me get back to the agenda.
They requested a special permit and a variance in the alternative.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yeah, I see it.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the special permit as requested.
Second.
Martin seconds.
Yep.
I'm assuming we don't need any discussion. If we do, please.
I
say out.
would the only discussion that I would say is the petitioner does not meet the criteria for a special permit under the definition of the bylaw.
All those in favor of them, I'm sorry, Mr. Igo,
Aye.
Mr. Mantoni,
Aye.
Mr. Frapery,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So therefore, that carries by voice vote, by a roll call vote on a 5-0 vote to deny the request for a special permit. Now we have the
Mr. Chairman,
variance to consider.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the request for variance relief.
And I will second it again.
Does anybody care to have any discussion on this motion before proceeding to a vote?
Yes, the petitioner fails to meet the criteria necessary to qualify for a variance under our bylaw and under chapter 40A.
Anybody else? All those in favor, please indicate by saying.
Aye.
I'm just going to keep doing it because force of habit. I'm so sorry. Jay,
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. That carries 5-0 to deny the request for a variance. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening. Brings us to our next petition, that of 5024, Wakeby Development Incorporated, with property located at 184 South Street Avenue, Unit Number 1 in West Yarmouth, Massachusetts. That property is in a zoning district, R25. Our applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to 104.3.2 subparagraph 2 and 104.3.2 subparagraph 4, or in the alternative, excuse me, a variance pursuant to 203.5 of our zoning bylaws. Seeking front setback relief to raise and replace a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling within the existing footprint as part of a pre-existing non-conforming use. Good evening. Who's going to tell us about this?
My name is John Burke. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board.
Hello, Mr. Burke.
Thank you. The property is located in a South Sea Village condominium. It's one of 33 units. It was established back in 1981. The homes are much older. We're seeking relief to remove the existing structure and replace it within the existing footprint of the foundation, essentially. Currently, the windmill home is the home that's there now is a three-bedroom, one bath, two-story. It's approximately 1,005 square feet. We are planning on erecting a three-bedroom, three-bath home with a full basement on the existing footprint. The new home's going to be 1,577 square feet. The height of the new home is 23 feet 8 inches at the ridge line. We're seeking a special permit to raise and replace, and the use of the property will remain as is. We believe we met the requirements of a special permit, and we hope you agree.
Thank you very much. Any questions of our petitioner's representative, Mr. Martin?
No, it looks like you're in the exact same footprint, adding some landings, but actually removing a deck. I don't, it's a condominium, cottage colony, and it's not increasing the overall footprint, so I don't have any real issue here. It's not in the flood zone. The board has apparently approved your request, so I don't see anything to ask a question about, actually. Looks nice.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Frapery?
I just have a question about the proposed landing and proposed bay window. In the site plan, you kind of show it as two small bump outs. But
Yes.
in the rendering, it looks as like it's one roof that sticks out. So which is it? Just
On the proposed bay window, it's a cantilever over the foundation.
right, I understand
and
that.
The foundation stays the same, so the proposed landing is just going to be a stoop. You're asking about the exterior roof line? Is that your question?
Yeah, the roof, it's not, you have one continuous roof over both in their rendering, so I'm
Yes.
just trying to understand which is it? Is it,
Well, good question. The way I interpret the plot plan, I guess I'm looking at it like maybe the first 1 foot, 18 inches off the ground is how I understand it, interpret it, based on that plan. And based on the elevation, I see two different things here. See the stoop and the single step,
yes,
and then the cantilever. I believe the roof line is over the door and over the window itself.
and how far does that extend out, just out of curiosity?
It's a great question. Let's see. It looks approximately 3 feet
Okay,
off the foundation.
and the closest the building comes to that side, the front side is 14 feet today? And it looks like it's probably
Let's see, 14 feet. Do you mean,
to the corner of the windmill area.
yes, exactly, correct.
It kind of goes backward on a slight angle, so it's probably about the same with the overpass. Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mentani?
I don't really have any questions. I mean, you're basically going to reconstruct what's already there, and that'll certainly enhance the neighborhood, so I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Igo?
We've dealt with this, these redevelopments in this cottage colony as well as others. I've never seen us allow this before in the past. I don't know that this fits into a legally pre-existing non-conforming single-family structure. This has no, it's not sitting on its own lot. It's on one big parcel. We have asked these owners in the past to bring us some type of plan, comprehensive plan, as to how they may consider redeveloping this. We've never been inclined to grant them relief like this on a one-off basis. So the history of this particular property right here, this was a cottage that really was not a full year-round cottage. It was a summer cottage. Probably has a cesspool. I doubt it has a septic, a Title V septic in it, although I could be wrong.
It does currently have a Title V septic that was installed around 2003.
Okay. Well, it's a seasonal cottage. It's meant to be a seasonal cottage. I know it is on a big piece of property overall. But what you're gonna do now is you're gonna take this and make this a year-round home. And then they're gonna come in and they're all gonna ask to be converted to year-round homes. And they're not on any type of a subdivision plan. There's no lot lines, there's no setbacks. So I don't ever remember this board historically allowing relief like this. So I would not be able to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I remember this board not supporting it in the past.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we now make some new determination on some, but perhaps other board members will feel differently. The whole nature of this property over the years has changed dramatically from what it was before, and when they condominiumized the property from several cottages, beach cottages, and we now see extensive homes that they want to put on it. I apologize, everybody. The pollen down here is just awful. And I hear it is back there too, so but forgive me. Isn't there a restriction, Sean, if you could remind me, currently on this property that it not be used for home year-round occupancy?
My understanding is that we have restricted any use of this property beyond seasonal. We normally require them to shut the water off. I don't know if the town still does that or not, but they could use it from April 1st, probably until November 1st, and then the town shut the main off. So it
I
was
think
no longer-
I know a little experience on the condominium. This is one of the very first condominiums within the community. And I don't believe there was a seasonal restriction imposed on that. And I know there are a number of those houses that are used year-round. So I don't think that restriction, again, was never applied. And so I don't know that applies here either, which is why I would probably believe in allowing this under those circumstances. In another cottage colony which had that restriction, I would feel differently.
Well, Dick, you see these.
There have been also there've been other there's been other relief asked for within South Sea Village, quite a bit of it actually, and it usually involves, I know some people have wanted extra bedrooms, and that has typically not been allowed. Some people have wanted enclosing a porch or putting a deck on and so forth, and that typically I think has been allowed. But I don't think there's anything that says that this has to, per se, remain seasonal.
Okay. Anything else you want to say, Sean, or Dick, or anybody for that matter?
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can see where in 1981 on a petition by Ron Rudnick, the relief sought was denied. And that was to pretty much expand the sort of use down there. Let's go to the next decision.
That was denied.
The next one would be May of 82, decision 1839.
Seasonal use only. This one says right here, the cottage will remain a one-bedroom cottage.
Some minor
At the same.
interior reconfiguring of rooms and the like was allowed.
This is unit one.
Okay. Different unit? Yeah. Fact that they only allowed one.
And this thing is just running way too slow to keep up.
See anything about the
Trying to-
Mr. Chairman, there is one comment in here under the petition, where's the number? 1875 from 9/23/82, and it does say
Okay.
the board finds the addition will not cause any undue, it's approved, and no congestion, et cetera. It says the cottage will remain a one-bedroom cottage for seasonal use only.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure that was not this unit, it was unit 4.
Unit 4, okay.
Well, I mean, as Mr. Martin said, there's just a whole bunch of decisions concerning this property because there's a whole bunch of structures within the property. And I don't think it was ever intended that we now see homes of this size with these number of bedrooms to become the norm of all the buildings in there. And I'm not going to support this tonight. Let's see if anybody in our audience would care to speak in favor of the petition. If so, please come up to the microphone. Let us know who you are and what you have to say about it. Seeing none, does anybody care to speak in opposition to this petition this evening?
I'd like to speak. My name is Susan Kinnear, and I don't know if I completely agree with putting a full basement there. I think it's very close to the flood zone, and what a lot of people don't realize is the underground streams that come through. And even if you're not in a flood zone, you put in a full basement, you will have a basement of water. I live right behind this cottage. I grew up actually sleeping there because my friend's parents ran the office. And I unfortunately know the people who requested it to be turned into condos.
One was denied.
These cottages originally were summer cottages, but there are people that live there year-round currently. Those cottages originally were built with a lot of repurposed wood, so they were not viable for living in year-round. And a lot of the current residents have done a lot of work and have greatly improved what was originally there. I mean, growing up, I went there from the 70s. The property itself is in incredible disarray, and to drive down or walk around South Sea Ave, it's disappointing as a resident who's owned property down here for many, many years to see it look like that. Any improvement in that property would be, I think, beneficial, but I think it needs to be more conforming and not, making the house much larger, I think, I agree, would probably not fit well within that area, but there are houses that are part of South Sea Village that are considerably big. The house next door on the other side of the entry road is a very good-sized house. I believe that could be even a 4-bedroom house. So it's a small area, it's a small footprint, keeping within that footprint, but keeping more within the lines of, what the area is, I think would not be a bad thing. It's been, that house has been a mess for probably, it looks horrible. It's been there for about 6 years like that. The previous owners just destroyed it. And it's unfortunate.
Your mic's off, Steve. Mike, your mic's off.
Thank you very much for your input. It's very much appreciated.
I mean, just.
Wonderful when people come out. So, anybody else care to speak in opposition to the petition? If so, come to the microphone, please.
Hi, Bob
Tell us your name and
Sorry,
Oh.
Bob Garahan. I am at 184 South Sea, Unit 13, so I'm in the South Sea Village. Just a comment. I'm not speaking on denying. I just wanted to make a comment that you are correct. There are folks that live there year-round. The house across the street, I would say, has always been year-round since it was originally built and is within the condominium. And I would also like to echo the fact that right now that house is sitting there like a haunted house. There's no siding on it. I know they had some foundation issues I think they worked with the building committee on before. And right now it is just a tremendous eyesore. So while I don't fully personally agree with some of the plans, but I do think something really needs to be done for the community with that property. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak in opposition to this petition? And seeing none, we now open it up to board discussion deliberations. Mr. Martin, your thoughts?
I'm sorry.
Dick, did you have something? If you did, we couldn't hear it.
No, we were just trying to figure a few things out. I'm not sure I'm, in looking at the previous relief that was granted, in our packet here, at least, I don't see where the cottages became condos. I see where there was the first one seems to be a prospectus for a large condominium complex of new buildings. So I don't know where it was actually condominiumized in terms of the cottages themselves.
It
If anybody
sounds to
knows
me
anything
like
about that?
they don't have an association either, because they're not even looking after the buildings that are in disrepair, so it doesn't seem like it's an active association, if there is one.
I think it is active. I think, they actually have exclusive beach rights to that beach next to Seagull, where they have a gate and keys and the whole bit going on.
They have sent in their support of the petition, so.
Yeah.
They do exist from some standpoint.
Okay.
David Marino apparently is the Board of Managers or whatever, SSV Board of Managers.
I'm just, Sean and Steve, I just am looking at the last one in the packet, which is the most recent one apparently of the petitions from February 27th of 2013. And there is some consistency on supporting some of these types of things. So I'm not.
Well, I think there's consistency in supporting a reasonable amount of remodeling, but keeping it the same as it was. I don't think you've seen this board make a determination that we allow to take a little broken down cottage and turn it into a blown out 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath year-round home. It's not a legally pre-existing non-conforming structure in terms of it having its own lot setbacks.
I was just trying to quickly read some of the old petitions and what they said, that's all. So.
No, I appreciate that, but this isn't the only cottage colony, if I may, that we deal with. There's tons of them around town. And we've had similar requests from all of them, and we're pretty consistent with them.
I got one question. If a property burns to the ground, what do you recommend? What have you done in the past?
You know, I'm not gonna even comment on that.
Okay.
And I don't think any board member should comment on it either. We only talk about facts, we don't talk about suppositions, so. I don't have that.
I'd like to move the question here, Mr. Chairman. If
Please.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the relief requested.
Well, the relief requested was requested in two different forms, so which are you suggesting?
This special
Both form-
permit. I'd like to make a motion that we deny the special permit, request for special permit.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Who is
Might as
that,
well
please?
second it for purposes of discussion, because you can vote against it, and if it was 4-1 against, you'd actually approve it, so. To move it along anyway, for purposes of
Who
discussion.
was the second, please?
John.
John,
Thank you, John. All right, does the board care to have any discussion before moving that along to a roll call vote?
Only that the petitioner failed to meet the criteria under a special permit.
Anybody else? Mr. Igo?
Nay. Oh, excuse me, aye.
Yeah, you fashioned the motion, so.
Yeah, it's a motion to deny, I'm sorry. Aye.
Mr. Igo's an aye. Mr. Mantoni?
aye.
Mr. Frapery?
I'm gonna say nay.
Okay, Mr. Martin?
Nay.
And Mr. DeYoung is an aye, it fails. Oh, the motion is, the relief requested is then therefore not granted.
I'd like to make a
Oh,
motion.
no, that's necessarily true, and I'm gonna correct myself on that. I think somebody has to make a motion to approve the grant of special permit.
I'll make a motion to approve the special permit.
And I'll second it.
Okay? Does the board care to have any discussion before moving along to a vote? All right, let's start with Mr. Frapery,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Mantoni,
Nay.
Mr. Igo,
Nay.
and Mr. DeYoung is a nay, so that's carries two, does not carry by a vote of 2 to 3. We have a variance to consider. What, anybody want to do, make any motion or anything with regard to that?
Does somebody want to make a motion to approve the variance?
I'll also move. Dick?
Jay, you gonna second that?
No.
You're not gonna second it? All right, then I'll make a motion. All right, then, anybody gonna, John, you gonna second it? I'll second the motion to approve a variance.
Just let me catch up, please. On the motion made by Mr. Martin, and seconded by Mr. Igo to approve the request for variance. Does the board care to have any discussion before moving along?
I don't think it qualifies for a variance, so,
Under the criteria
yes.
for a variance?
That's why we're gonna say nay.
Anybody else? Mr. Frapery?
Nay.
Mr. Martin?
Nay.
Mr.
Nay.
Mantoni?
Nay.
Mr. Igo?
Nay.
And I'm a nay. That fails on a vote of 0-5. Decisions will be drafted and filed. Thank you very much. Brings us to our next petition.
Thank you.
5017. Jeffrey and Kimberly LaRoe of 3 Jerusha Lane. The property's in the zoning district R25. This is a continued hearing from 5/11, where in our applicant this evening seeks a special permit pursuant to 104.3.2 subparagraph 2, or in the alternative from 203.5, the front setback relief on pre-existing non-conforming lot to build an in-ground pool. To bring everybody's memory back, I'm sure you all have a memory, but it's a corner lot, and we suggested it was too close to one of the streets where they had plotted it, and they should look into other alternatives. So, good evening. Who is here for the petition?
Good evening. I'm Jeff Laurel. My wife is unable to
Jeff.
make it tonight.
That's fine, Jeff. No problem.
So we went back, and I went back with my pool builder, and we decided that we would move the shed, and we would put the pool in the backyard where you guys suggested it should be sitting.
Good enough. Well, I saw the plans, and I think you went out of your way to accommodate our concerns. We certainly appreciate your efforts. Now, let's see if the board agrees. So, Mr. Igo, any questions of the petitioner?
I don't have any questions. I see that it's set back from the bulkhead. I don't know what the distance is there. Do you know the distance?
Yeah, it's roughly about 8 feet from the bulkhead.
Looks like it might be a little bit more, but I think you need a minimum of 15.
Yeah, it looks a lot further than 8 on the plan, anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, you're gonna have setback requirements from the foundation, I believe, with that as well, so.
Yeah, I
don't
just,
think
I
that-
didn't measure it, but I mean, I think the builder, the pool made sure that we were gonna have plenty of room there. That's why we're asking for the setback on the back and the side.
I think, I don't have any questions. I do have a comment. I think the petitioner did a good job working with us and us working with him. I think the alternative site for the pool looks okay to me.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
really
think-
feel after we talked about it that night, when we went back and Tim came over and we laid it out, it really did fit better in that spot in the yard, so I appreciate,
I don't
appreciate
think
you
he-
guys pushing me to move it there.
I don't think he can move it any further off of his side lot line, because I don't think he can get any closer to a septic system.
Yeah, I'm
with that
only
either,
2
so-
feet, I'm 22 feet and I have to be 20 feet.
Yeah. That's all I have right now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mantoni, any questions?
With regards to the shed now, so you got like 4 options here, is that right?
Yeah, so we kind of threw around a bunch of options, and we were kind of just we wanted to make sure we do what we had to do for the pool, and then we could, once we voted on a pool, we could move on and talk about the shed, or if you want to do it all at once. But there's a lot of different variables with the shed. I know you said if I can get the pool in the back, we could put the shed where we want, but I understand that's not exactly going to happen either. There's a lot of different options there, but some of those options are also going to entail me spending a lot of money. So I would like to talk about where the shed goes, because if I have to start moving the fence, it's going to be very expensive, and I'm already paying probably about $500 to move the shed to a different spot in the yard, which
No,
I
I'm sorry, we
understand
can't-
because I want the pool.
We can't deal with that tonight because it's an additional form of relief you need.
Okay.
It's not before the board appropriately, so, or neighbors or abutters that might have an interest, so we just can't do it. Love to, but can't.
The condition.
Yeah, well, I thought we talked, I thought when we did that, we were gonna talk about
Steve,
both.
I think the shed needs to be part of the proposal one way or another.
Yeah, I thought we
I don't think he
Well,
asked.
if you want to make it a condition, that's fine.
Yeah, some kind of
You
condition.
can
I
do
think,
that.
I agree.
Yeah, if you guys can give me some conditions where you want it, and then I can kind of make some judgments on where to put it. I just feel like that's what we talked about last time.
He's got 4 identified locations right now, I think A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, and then I kind of got one more that I'd like to talk about if we could, or if not.
If I could interject, Mr. Chairman, because I think the chairman had it right. He only asked for relief for an in-ground pool. We can't give you any relief relative to the shed. The only thing we can tell you is you can put it somewhere as a matter of right if you meet the required setbacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, you'd have to come back and see us.
And in all fairness, going back to that meeting, that's what the petitioner was told.
Okay.
Put it any way you want, that's legal to put it.
Okay. Sounds fair. And then if I need a setback, then I'll ask for that and have another meeting.
Well, I think
Sure.
what we're saying is where you're showing it here may not be legal.
Yeah. Well, a couple of them are and a couple of them aren't.
Yeah, right.
So, but my main concern was the pool tonight so we could move on.
Good enough. So, does anybody, just generally on the board, care to have any discussion or questions of the petitioner beyond what we've just heard?
Just what was kind of said, I'm pleased that the pool has been relocated, and I think that's a great option. But as, on the plan anyways, if we could, if the shed could be, I think it needs to be relocated so it's legal, or you'll need additional relief.
Anybody else?
I agree with Mr. Martin. I think that the pool's in a good location and everything he said.
Anybody in our audience care to weigh in on this petition? Seeing no hands either for or against, we'll close it to public input, open it up to board discussion. Personally, I think this petitioner went out of his way to accommodate our request in a tasteful way, a nice way, and solve all the issues we had last time relative to the pool. And I thank you very much for that. Getting it off that road and its proximity to tarred surface is a big plus.
Yeah,
I've got nothing.
it really did
Anybody
make
else?
a lot of sense when I went back there and looked at it. And that's some of my issues too with the fence. I really don't want to move the fence because it's going to be too close to the road, and I don't want that.
Well, we try to be sensible.
Yep. I appreciate it.
Anybody else want to say anything about it? Anybody prepared to make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the petition as presented, with, I don't know if we need to make the condition about the shed being legal, but if necessary,
No.
I include that. But
Yeah.
No, we don't. We don't have to.
Yeah.
No,
It's not on
We
the.
don't have to, but you should be aware that,
it's supposed to be legal. I mean, it's just that simple, or get relief.
I'll second that.
Can I just make one suggestion concerning the motion? We have 2 plot plans, one with the original petition that is number 557. It looks like it's all the same. They didn't redate it, so we don't have an up-to-date plan.
Oh,
The one that he
we do
submitted
have,
to the board.
we do have
We do,
five-
yeah.
We do have it.
5017, we've got in our packets.
Yeah, but what's the date on it? Oh, does it say, it says revised on it underneath it. Okay, it says so the revised plan of May 17th, 2023 is, could we reference that in your motion, Jay?
Sure.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the petition as presented based on the plot plan provided on May 17th, 2023.
Thank you, and
I'm fine with
Dick,
that.
you second that? All right, let's have a roll call. Sean?
Aye.
Dick?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So that carries unanimously by roll call vote. A decision will be drafted. That decision will be filed with the town clerk's office. Once that occurs, 20 days must elapse. That's a technical waiting period in case somebody should decide to appeal. There being no appeal, you would need to take that granted relief and bring it to the Registry of Deeds to record. Okay, now is there an alternative
Need to
relief?
remove the variance.
Okay, how about the variance?
Thank you,
Anybody
Mr.
prepared to
Chairman.
make
Thank
a
you,
mo-
board.
Okay to remove the
Well,
variance? and no-
well, we can do it. Move to allow the petitioner to withdraw the request for a variance without prejudice.
Second? That's Jay.
Who's second?
Jay?
Sounded like Dick.
I thought so too. Too loud.
I guess we do.
I think you guys are just doing that to make me look like the fool I am.
I've been practicing Dick's voice for a long time, so.
He's my imitator.
I know who that voice is. All right, so let's do a roll call, a voice vote on that motion to allow the withdrawal without prejudice of the request for a variance. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much, sir. We'll see you later.
Okay,
Good
thank you.
luck with your pool. All right, and as we come to the next petition, I just want to point out, this is a continued petition. And I'm going to ask, make the same statement I did last time. We don't want to hear a lot of repetitive statements where everybody says the exact same thing without changes. I think what we want to hear is substance. So if somebody has something substantively different than was said last time, please feel free to bring it to our attention. And now I'm trying to get it up to it. Come on.
There's a date on it somewhere.
All right. Petition 5019. It's a continued petition from 5/11/23. Maria Curtis, doing business as Lightning Speed Go-Karts, property located at 228 Route 28, West Yarmouth. That property being located in the B2 zoning district. Our applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to 301.2 for buffer tree requirement and/or to allow a differing use table designation than would otherwise be allowed at this location, so as to install a seasonal go-kart racetrack. Who's appearing on behalf of the petitioner?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Kieran Healy. I'm a land surveyor with the BSC Group. Brian from my office, who presented at the last meeting, had a family emergency, so I am here tonight in his stead. Also with me tonight is Marie Curtis, who is the petitioner for the project.
You go right ahead, please, and present your petition.
At the last meeting...
With any new information beyond that was presented at the last hearing.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, at the last meeting, there were some items that were requested by the board, and we have added those to the plan. If I could go through just the list of those items. The first item was that some of the board members felt that additional parking should be provided, and we provided another 17 parking spaces on the front left-hand side of the property. It is still a good bit back from the street, but it is utilizing existing area that can be for those additional 17 parking spaces. The second item...
What will that make the total? So what will that make the total?
The total will now be 54 parking spaces. 54.
Okay.
The second item that we did was the placement of trees in front of the property. Before we had trees that could be easily moved, and what we've done is we've set the 5 trees right in front of the facility itself to be within wooden enclosures and also to be permanently set in that location. Those particular trees will also help block that curb cut that's no longer going to be utilized for access to the property. One of the other items was a sketch of the interior of the tent and how it was broken down. Basically, the tent is broken up into 3 components. There'll be a small office area for sales. There will be a maintenance area, and there will be the storage of the vehicles and the loading of vehicles for the people who are using them. And then the second last item is that There was a discussion about the safety on the site, and speed bumps were recommended. What we've done is we've added 3 speed bumps to the driveway aisle to slow down traffic. Basically, one as you leave Route 28, one as you go from one parking area to the other, and one behind that between the other 2 parking areas. In areas where you would possibly pick up speed, we put in the speed bumps to make sure that cannot happen. And then the last item that we have, based on the meeting last couple of weeks ago, was the second layer of fencing. We had fencing around the go-kart area on the west side. We've added the complete 6-foot wide strip all the way back to where the restroom facilities would be. And that will also have a secondary fence between the driveway aisle and the pathway to eliminate the possibility of somebody crossing into that area. We will have some openings in that fence, so when people leave the parking area, they can walk right across and get into that particular walkway for safety as they walk down to the front entrance into the facility. One of the other items that was discussed at the last meeting was the potential for noise. And there were some readings about decibels and the amount of decibels that might be available on the site. And if I could just bring your attention to a second plan that I have here with me, and that is the buildings in this area are commercial buildings with the building.
Could you hold it up so as well people in the audience could see it? Or I invite anybody in the audience who would like to see it, please come up.
Sure. If I could display it to the board first and then display it to the neighbors second, I think that would help.
All right.
One of the concerns is that the condominium to the rear would be affected by the noise from this particular use. And what I did was I took a Google overlay map that shows the location of the condominiums and a distance from the nearest condominium to the back edge of the go-kart. And that would be between the trees, the wetlands, the trees in this area to this building. And that distance was 890 feet. So there's a substantial distance between the closest residential structure and the rear edge of the go-kart. Now, Buck Island condominiums, the property line itself is extremely close, but the actual nearest building is 890 feet away. So I think that would decrease or eliminate any noise that might get from this area all the way back to this closest condominium.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Curtis and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Anybody want to ask questions on the board? So start with you, Sean. Go right ahead. I see Ed taking that.
On the last meeting, I had a discussion with you about when you pull into the entrance off 28, where you're going to feed customers through that walkway in between the 2 handicap spots. I thought we had a discussion about closing that off and leading your customers down through that fenced-in area to buy tickets. Do you have any discussions or thoughts about that?
The area itself, in this particular area, we have our walkway down, and this area right here where the picnic benches are, that will also be available for people to walk in and walk down into this. This particular striped area is more for the handicapped accessible. It could be used for people to walk in and out, but primarily this is for handicapped vehicles to park and for the wheelchairs to get in here. But the pedestrians themselves will walk right through in this area by the picnic benches. So it would not go directly behind the 2 handicapped spaces. This striped area is primarily for the handicapped wheelchair in this area.
Where are you going to put a gate?
The gate will still be in that same location.
So you're gonna, so I guess my point is where it's this proposed gate, you're still planning on bringing people in there right off 28? So you're gonna have people walking down the driveway to go buy tickets. That was my concern last time we talked. You weren't here, Kieran. The other gentleman was here.
Yeah, I did review the tape. I mean, if this is the issue, we can add some sidewalk in this area and bring them over.
Well, what I was thinking was this. Take your 2 handicap parking spaces and put those, the first 2 as you drive in on the left-hand side. And just put a gate straight across adjacent to each parking area. Put a gate, an entrance gate, all 3 all the way up. People come in that way, they walk down that walkway. You close this off down at 28 and you have your ticket booth right there. Then everybody goes back up that walkway, walks into their respective parking area, and they get in, they get out of their cars.
Okay.
That way no one's, because that, what it looks like to me is it looks like Captain Parker's. That's what it looks like to me. Where Jerry's got that back door, or he used to have it, and cars are coming in and off 28, and they're backed up down 28, and it's a mess coming in there. I want to prevent that, as well as people getting hit by cars. Although I like the speed bump, but I think having your entrance for your customers and your, I think that's going to be difficult.
There, if I don't know if you can see my location, but where I've got you're talking about moving 2 parking spaces to the west side of the driveway for the handicapped.
That's correct.
And we're perfectly fine with that. If the board would be happy with that, we'd be more than pleased to put them in that location. And we
And
move
why
the,
don't we just-
we move the
why don't we
parking.
just close the rest of that, just close that entrance off with a gate and just make your customers come into 3 adjacent gates that run up the walkway there. You got directional signs, tickets this way, hang them on the interior fence.
Yeah, we
That
do.
way you control the crowd.
Yeah, we do have that in this location, and this location. But, so we'll just, eliminate these 2 parking here and move them over there. That
And
would
then
be,
just put a gate across that other place,
Yes.
across the whole thing?
yes.
Okay. Otherwise, I think it's a vast improvement.
Dick?
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Dick, any questions or comments?
So you don't have any sidewalk that goes from the kind of gate and entrance area out to the street sidewalk either then, right?
We didn't have one, but we can, just like with handicap.
That would be
we
a good
can-
idea
that's,
as well. Yeah.
I don't expect pedestrians, but I guess that's possible.
You'll
from
have
some of the
pedestrians,
hotels.
yeah.
From some of the hotels in the area, I guess that's possible.
Yeah.
So we can definitely add that portion.
Okay. So the trees that are in planters are now just in front of the track, or the other trees being planted? The ones in the parking lot and in front of the parking lot?
Actually, the opposite. The ones in front, these ones here will be planted. They will have an enclosure around them because it's pavement right now, but these will be planted permanently, and these ones here would be the ones that are in the planters that you can see on the sketch on the left-hand side. And the reason for the temporary plants is that this is a temporary seasonal use for this property that we're looking for. There is a long-range development plan for this property which doesn't include go-karts. So this is a temporary permit that we're looking for.
I mean, it looks to me, I look at the boxes and I would have assumed that those are the planters and the other trees are planted. I don't think it's shown correctly in my estimation.
These planters are much larger than these ones here that are movable. The ones that are movable that are in the parking lot are approximately 2 foot square. These ones are 6 feet by 8 feet.
So they're all planters, you're saying? Those are bigger planters?
Those are bigger planters, but they're permanent enclosures.
Are they going to go in the ground or not?
The trees are going to go in the ground, yes. The reason for the permanent structure is that one of the concerns was that people might feel that they could still drive in there. So that's one of the reasons for these, or the primary reason for these, is that they would eliminate people thinking they can drive in that area.
Okay, I don't have any other questions at this point.
Jay?
I think you made some very good additions, and I appreciate you making all the changes that you have. I just wanted to check and see, is the minimum of 20 feet for the entire entrance still valid with the changes you made?
Yes.
Okay. And the walkway is, how wide is that walkway that's going to be between the 2 fences?
It's a minimum of 5 feet.
Minimum of 5 feet. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
John?
I just have one question. we did ask you to put speed bumps in, but are we concerned that that first speed bump off of 28 will slow traffic and back it up on 28?
We don't believe it will because there's enough space for two vehicles once you come off 28 before you get to the speed bump. It's when it's less than two is where you have that issue. So this is set just right at a distance of two vehicles.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, I have no questions of what you presented. I understand the changes made. And I think we still need to have some shown, but overall, I think you've done a great job of addressing the concerns that we as a board raised. Now, others out in our audience may be interested in making comments or giving us input. And I want you to hear this now. First, is anybody in our audience interested in speaking in favor of this petition? If so, come to the microphone, please. Who are you, sir?
Paul Leidenfrost, District 6, Precinct 6, whatever you want to call it. I am for,
Go ahead.
I am for Ms. Curtis's lightning speed go-karts and the new provisions, the new revisions that she has created.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else care to speak in favor of the petition? If so, please come to the microphone. Seeing none. Now, before we get to a request generally on the opposition, I know that we have Christopher Sane, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Attorney Sane, who is here on behalf of some of the parties opposing this petition. Sir, would you please like to come to the microphone and tell us what you'd like to tell us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Christopher Senni. I live and
Sorry,
have a...
thank you.
That's okay. I live and have a small law practice in Brewster, and I specialize in land use. I was contacted yesterday, which has not left me much time to prepare, by my two clients, and I have prepared. In fact, I've studied the tape from the prior session of this hearing, which was May 11th. My clients are here. I represent Marilyn Lucht of 481 Buck Island Road, Unit 7E. That is, she lives in the condominium complex that Mr. Healy just pointed to on his map. I also represent Wagner Quintanilla. He is also here. He is the manager of the Sunbird Cape Cod Resort and Annex. His company is called Wagner Hospitality Management, and he's the president of that company. And that's at 216-226 Route 28. And that is directly abutting the subject parcel. The applicant has applied for a go-kart track, as you know. It seems to me that this is coming in for a special permit under a use line known as N11, which is other miscellaneous amusement and other recreation services, which is an allowed use in this zone, B2, if one comes to this board and gets a special permit. In that use table, just above this line item is one called temporary outdoor recreation, which I note is not allowed in this zone. I assume for tonight that the board is proceeding as if this proposal fits within N11, other miscellaneous amusement and recreation services. And again, that is allowed in this zone by special permit. That brings up the main part of your zoning bylaws that you consider whenever you have a special permit application in front of you, 103.2.2. Special permits shall not be granted unless the applicant demonstrates that no undue nuisance, hazard, or congestion will be created and that there will be no substantial harm to the established or future character of the neighborhood or town. That's an important sentence. It establishes, first of all, who has the burden to establish. Do the neighbors have a burden here to establish that the noise that reaches their properties will be a nuisance, or does the applicant have a duty to establish and satisfy this board, demonstrate to this board that it will not be a nuisance. And I think the wording on this key sentence is clear, that it's the applicant's burden. And the applicant really has to demonstrate that there will be no undue nuisance and no substantial harm to the character of the neighborhood. I recognize that these are subjective standards and that this is your call, but your board ought to be looking at what are we basing a finding on, that there will be no undue nuisance and no substantial harm. At the last hearing, 2 board members did express concern about noise levels. The chair inquired of the applicant if she was qualified to take noise readings, if she had some skill or training in this. She said that she wasn't, but that she had visited some tracks and on a handheld meter had taken some readings, and they were in the 72, 73, or 74 decibel level. We don't know her qualifications. We don't know what sound level reader was used or if it was calibrated before or after the testing. There's a lot we don't know. And a board member at the hearing last time acknowledged that we just don't know. The comment at the hearing was, we can go out there and have a perfect 70 decibel reading when you put 10 carts there on the ground and light them all up. But you start them up, and then if they're actually on the track speeding around, maybe that goes up to 170. I don't know. That was a board member saying, we really don't know the sound pressures that are going to reach the properties. And keep in mind, one of my clients is in the abutting property, operating a motel where people are trying to relax and get rest. One member did say, I think we need an expert study here, so that there would be a basis to our finding that there will be no nuisance. And I quote, I think it would just reiterate, I would just reiterate what was said around the noise. I think that some kind of study that really identified it from a professional as to what the noise level would be helpful, just to reassure me that it doesn't carry in whichever direction we're talking about. So that's one thing I think is important. I agree with that statement. I have had occasion to present to boards like this acoustical studies prepared by acoustical engineers. I've worked with about a dozen acoustical engineers in land use matters. It is not difficult or expensive or time-consuming for an applicant to prepare an acoustical analysis or have an acoustical engineer do so. In fact, it could have been done between May 11th and tonight. It's that short a period of time. It is not expensive. It is similar to your board asking the developer of a shopping center to produce a traffic study. If there's concern about car trips and circulation, an applicant would produce a study for you so that you could look at an expert's work. That is becoming more and more common, and it's very simple to do. The gasoline engines in these go-karts have a sound power level. Those engines did not enter the commerce stream without being tested in a lab. And so that engine, which is the loudest part of the go-kart, has a sound power level that gets plugged into a piece of software called Cadna A. I've seen this many times. It produces a map, which is what I think the one board member was talking about. I want to see how far out does the sound go and at what levels will it be here and here and here away from the property. The result is a contour map. You could have a contour map in front of you. The sound power would be entered. That's at the center of the circles. The circles are not exact circles because what's inputted also is the softness of the ground. There's a factor inputted. Sound travels quicker and lasts longer over a flat surface like concrete or water, but if there's vegetative growth there, it's less. And so these are sort of amoeba-shaped circles. And so you have the sound source, and then there would be 70 decibels, 60 decibels, 50 decibels, 40 decibels, and the sound decays over distance. And so it's very easy and very standard for an applicant to produce this sound study. And I'm urging that this process be slowed down and that be done in this case. So you will know at the time this reaches my client's motel, which is right next door, what will the decibel levels be. The other thing I noticed in the hearing is that there's been a lot of emphasis on the fact that this is going to be a temporary condition, that the applicant is looking for a a temporary special permit. And the emphasis here seems to be to sort of not fulfill all of the work that is normally done to determine if your standard, that sentence I read to you, is being met. But the zoning bylaws don't say that. If you're granting a special permit, it's a permanent thing. It may have a sunset date, but you have to be looking at it as a permanent land use decision that you're making. And your zoning bylaws, and none I've ever seen, differentiate. There isn't a different standard for one that's going to sunset as compared to one that won't. One board member said it this way: look, I think it's a great idea, okay? I wouldn't agree to a permanent location here. I don't think it's the right thing for what we want to see on 28, but it's a heck of a lot better than what we're looking at now. You know, and if it's a limited duration, that's great, and you couldn't extend that duration without coming back to the board. That's not a safeguard. You still need to do your job to understand what injury or adverse impacts might be incurred during these 3 years. Also, at the end of that 3 years, when the applicant has already made the investment, it's going to be very difficult to tell the applicant, we're not going to renew it because it has caused a lot of distress. The time to ask for a study and understand what the likely impacts will be is now during special permitting. I did look at other go-kart facilities on the Cape. Cartwheels in Dennis, Bud's Go-Karts in Harwich, Cartland in Wareham, and Bass River Sports in Yarmouth. The one in Yarmouth is electrical carts, which I think is a much better idea than gas carts. I understand from the record I've read that the applicant has already bought the gas carts here. In none of these other locations is there an abutter that sleeps there or has guests sleep there. This would be something new, and I think your board should take that step only when you have in front of you the information that would let you make the decision and apply your standard. You should be comfortable that there won't be a nuisance, and it's the applicant's obligation to do that. There's only one way for her to do that, and that is to agree to present this study. Again, it is not an expensive study. I've done it very, very often, and it doesn't take a long time. It is possible that you could ruin or severely damage an existing vibrant business right next door. And my applicant is here and works very hard on the Sunbird facility. This is go-karts running 10 to 10. It's going to be loud. These are gas go-karts that are going to be very loud. I think there's a lot of danger here, and it would be in everyone's interest if the board would take their time and go through the standards in your bylaw. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate your input. Does anybody in our audience care to speak in opposition to this petition who has not already spoken? One at a time. Come right up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Wagner Quintanilla. I'm the manager at Sunbird Motel at 216 and 226, right next door to the proposed go-kart business. I'm here just to voice what being said about noise, and I just want to put a bug in your ear. All it takes is some reviews of guests commenting, it's a noise place that I'm just going to drive my business away. I'm very concerned. I like the go-kart business, but used to drive go-karts myself. That noise stays with you. If you come to a hotel, you want to relax, you want to, some quiet. There's a great neighborhood right there. We're very happy to be there and doing our best to improve our business. I really think it's going to hurt our business having that kind of noise right next door. We have rooms facing out to the second level of the middle building. Noise is going to travel. I really like to request some study to be done by experts and to see what kind of impact. In a quiet room, you got your decibel noise level is about 30. If I have a AC unit that's louder than that, I have to replace it because it's just not comfortable. So you want to quiet, and that's what I want to pledge for. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else care to speak in opposition to the petition? Please identify yourself.
Yes,
Tell us
my
where you live.
name is Marilyn Lucht, and I live at 481 Buck Island Road.
Wait a
And,
minute, ma'am, your attorney's already spoken.
okay, well,
Yeah.
you don't want me to speak.
No, no, we do not. But all we need to hear from your counsel. Does anyone else care to speak in opposition? And as I said earlier, who hasn't already spoken or now has had the opportunity to either speak themselves or have their representative speak on their behalf? There being none, we now close it to the public input to the discussion, open it up to
I'm
board
sorry.
discussion.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, could we just respond to a couple of things?
Who's?
This is Kieran Healy. Could I just respond to a couple of items before you close?
No, I think when the board wants to have you respond, we'll ask you to respond, Mr. Healy, okay?
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question?
No.
I raised my hand, you didn't see my hand, so you skipped me. I'm sorry.
No, ma'am, you are the petitioner. You had an opportunity to present on May 11th. You've had another opportunity here to present this evening. We're not going to go back and forth between those in opposition and you all night long. We are moving forward to the board's discussion and consideration of this matter, okay?
Okay, I had a letter.
you very much.
I had a letter in support that I just wished to submit on behalf of this
You can hand
person.
it
I
right up
raised my
to-
hand and I wasn't acknowledged. I'm sorry.
You can hand it right up to the board secretary. She would be happy to stamp it as an exhibit.
Thank you.
Now, perhaps our zoning administrative assistant will be able to tell us if there is anybody in the Zoom audience that is interested in this petition. And if you are, please raise your hand so that we can identify you.
No, Mr. Chairman, there's no one on Zoom that wishes to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. So now, who'd like to start the process? Any volunteers want to jump forward?
Mr. Chairman, there's additional correspondence. I don't know if you need to read that.
Yeah, why don't you read it right in, Dick, if you would, please?
Want me to read it, you said?
Yes.
Or Jay, or whoever has it.
Dick's gonna read it.
All right. Let's see, from Simone Schmier, 36 Rosemary Lane. Says, hi, a lady
No,
just
I'm-
stopped.
Is this new correspondence?
This is new correspondence, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, a lady just stopped by my house to tell me about the possible go-kart racetrack being considered for Route 28, and I must admit I had not heard about it. I live at the end of Rosemary Iris Lane and have lived there for at least 25 years. I am 84 years old and love to sit outside and read, listen to the many birds in the area. The thought of noisy go-karts would be a nightmare. I am sure the motel between me and the intended area would not be happy after all the reconstruction for which they have spent a fortune, I assume, would not be happy with guests trying to sleep there. Yarmouth used to be an okay area, but is starting to get a little honky-tonk, and I would hate to see it get worse. The summer traffic is a disaster if you live by a one-way street leading to Route 28. No one will let you out. I hope this will not happen. Another one from Donna Rice of Kensway, which I believe is right across the street. I reside on a private road, Kensway, directly across from the Tasty Buffet vacant lot. Although this neglected eyesore is something I see day in and day out, I'd rather see this depressing-looking lot of land instead of a racetrack. I'm amazed that this would even be considered as a good idea by anyone who lives in the area. I am vehemently opposed to this for the following reasons. Number one, noise. 8 gas-powered go-karts at a time running 12 hours a day would be torture for the residents of this area. Also, I think the businesses would suffer as well. Tourists who come to West Yarmouth want the peace and enjoyment of being outside relaxing without 70 to 75 decibels of noise per race cart all day long and into the night. This proposal is without merit and would add nothing to our local community. Route 28 is noisy as it is, but hearing the sounds of ambulances, fire trucks, and police cars throughout the day is fine by me. We feel protected knowing our first responders are on the job trying to save a life. We're not interested in the sounds of gas-powered go-karts described as like a continuous lawnmower 12 hours a day. Number 2, air and light pollution. It is unbelievable in the current green environment of today, where we are all concerned about emissions and air quality, that this proposal would ever be considered. Gas fumes alone are noxious, but the damage to our air quality and the effect it would have on our wildlife is very concerning. This area is surrounded by wetlands and should be protected from harm in any way. This proposal would be harmful to residents and our wildlife. 3, safety and traffic control. Additional traffic of cars trying to pull in or out of the quote-unquote racetrack only bogs down and slows an already heavy traffic route. With proposed parking for over 30 cars, maneuvering vehicles, and people causes unnecessary safety concerns. Traffic is already like a parking lot on Route 28 from Memorial Day through Labor Day. I oppose this type of business operating on Route 28. There must be other locations for something like this, although there are 3 go-kart raceways already in South Yarmouth, Harwich, and Dennis. Thank you for listening to the local residents, as we are all part of this community. From Kent Carlson, these are all new within the last day or two, I believe, right? Yeah. My name is Ken Carlson. I live in Buck Island Village, Unit 19A. I'm writing to say I oppose the go-kart track being discussed tonight. I attended the first meeting. I asked what the original zoning was. I was told business, but a zoning exception was required. Why? Because I do not believe the original zoning wanted a noisy entertainment business creating a traffic hazard or nuisance to the existing hotels, restaurants, and retail currently in the area. It would contribute to the deterioration of the area. Will a temporary go-kart track add to the vehicular traffic or pedestrian traffic? Will it add to the noise at the hotels and restaurants nearby? The present non-use of the area is an eyesore. Get on the owner to clean it up. It has got to be in a violation. I think that the noise and traffic will impact the newly renovated Sunbird and other hotels and restaurants negatively. Is a traveling carnival ride the best use of this property? That's from Kent and Alice Carlson. From Deborah Harkins, as a year concern, as a year-round resident of West Yarmouth, it's very concerning that a go-kart park has been planned for Route 28. The noise generated from gas-powered vehicles from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., not to mention the environmental impact, is unacceptable. If the park has to go in the expected location, why aren't electric vehicles being considered? I believe this plan needs to be reworked so all aspects and residents are being considered. And, okay, and this was the letter from Mr. Senni, who talked. This is the letter that just came in, I guess. This is from Frank Frederickson. Dear zoning board members, I've spoken with Maria Curtis, who is the applicant for the Lightning Speed go-kart track. I worked with Maria and known her for more than 20 years. I reviewed the proposal and site plan. The plan layout looks excellent. I worked in public safety for the town of Yarmouth for more than 45 years and feel that the location, site plan, and type of seasonal entertainment attraction is a great fit and will help Yarmouth to stabilize its tourist season. It appears that care and consideration of abutters was paramount. If approved, I am certain that Ms. Curtis will take the necessary steps to be compliant with the directions of the Board of Appeals. As for Ms. Curtis herself, she's a good person, a hard worker, and follows the rules. I would expect that to be how she will serve as the owner-manager of Lightning Speed Go-Karts. I have no doubt that she will address any issues that may develop in the future with timeliness and efficiency, and he's available for questions. Did I get them all? Yep. I think that was it for new correspondence.
Steve, your mic is off. Steve, your mic is off.
I'm so sorry. That's the arrogance of believing everybody can hear your words, no matter where spoken. So now we close it off, having all the public input we're going to have on this petition this evening, and we open it up to board discussions. Is anybody prepared to go ahead and start that discussion?
I'll make a discussion, start the discussion. I want to commend the petitioner for coming back with a revised track addressing our safety concerns, the parking concerns, trying to do their best to give us the plantings that we wanted as well. I do think it's a great idea as far as a tourist attraction. I'm sure it would do very well. Certainly something for the kids they'd love. I remember when I was a kid, I used to love going to the kart track. I must say, though, that after listening to the direct abutter at the hotel, I am concerned about the noise level and how that will affect his guests. He has sunk a lot of money into that over the past 12 months. I've seen that. And so this issue of the noise level has got me very concerned to the extent that I'm really not there yet, and that's because of that. I know they're here, they're asking for a 3-year special permit, and it would sunset after 3 years. It would have a 1-year review, we understand that. But the issue of the noise, I think, at least for me, I would need some further convincing that the noise would not disrupt guests at the hotel next door. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to hear from others.
Okay, thank you very much. John, what are your thoughts or questions
Well,
or concerns?
I would agree with Sean. I think he did a great job of doing exactly what we asked you to do. But this is the first time we have heard from the abutter. And he's got some serious concerns operating a hotel right next to the property. So I have concerns now as well about, I mean, we didn't have any opposition from him in the first meeting. So, but now he has raised some serious concerns.
Thank you. Jay?
And I just like to say that I appreciate all that was brought back, because I think they listened to what we had to say and brought a lot back. I think there would need to be a couple conditions on the sidewalks towards the front, as Dick brought up earlier, so I think those would be recommendations I would make as far as conditions. But I also am very concerned about the noise. I brought it up last time. I know there are professional ways of doing this. I've experienced that in the past. So I just would like to be convinced that it wouldn't affect the other business right next door. And I would encourage the petitioner to get some professional review of that, at minimum.
Thank you very much. Dick?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Sean and Jay. I just have some concerns. I think more, yes, I also appreciate that changes have been made and listening to our concerns. But there's still, there's an awful lot of neighbors here that are not thrilled with this idea, and I don't have any I'm not seeing any real professional information as to what certain decibels sound like, what the impact's going to be on the, and essentially a motel is a residential neighbor, as well as the other neighbors that are close by within 100 feet across the street. And not to mention the condominiums in back. And I just worry about how noisy that's going to be. If these were electric vehicles, I'd be, gung-ho here. If they were quiet, I wouldn't have any issue. But, there's not much, I don't like the idea that everything's temporary. The plantings are temporary. There's sections of the buffer that don't have any plantings, like over again by the motel. There's a whole section there without not even a tree and a planter, not to mention no fence. I think those kind of, that kind of thing has to be thought of at least as a minimum, and I guess I should have brought it up before, and I apologize for that. But, the motels are right there, and that needs to be properly buffered, even for temporary use. And I understand the reasoning for not wanting to do a whole lot, it being temporary, but temporary, as the attorney mentioned, may not be temporary. It may turn into permanent or near permanent or longer or get extensions. So I just, without a lot more information given as to how much effect the noise especially, not to mention the traffic's another issue that's a concern here. I find it hard to vote in favor of this as it's presented. As much as I'd like to, we need, this kind of recreational use is good, but I'm not sure this is the right spot for it. Which isn't to say that what's there is any good either, but.
You all set, Dick?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay. So, I'm a very big proponent that a business district should be allowed to have businesses conducted within it. And and this is very important that this be said from my perspective because of other businesses we've considered up and down Route 28. It is just not, in my mind, something that was quite to the fever pitch level it is tonight, because we hadn't heard an opposition from the most immediately affected abutter. And had that occurred, because it seems his only concerns are due to noise. We discussed noise, we discussed how easy it is to get readings. Maybe we would have well said, come on in with sound detection equipment. Tell us what it's going to be under the worst case scenario, the best case scenario, and let's have a definitive, will it or will it not impact the guest at the adjoining property. I don't know. They've just done a major rehab on that property, and maybe they put in some soundproofing materials and walls and better paned windows. I don't know if there'll be any noise incursion into the guest rooms. What I do know is it would have been better to have heard it a couple of weeks ago rather than tonight, because now I think we're going to have to say, if we're going to give it any consideration or just outright vote it down, I'm not in favor of that. But I'm not in favor of requiring a traffic study. I don't think that's an appropriate expenditure of money. I do think it would be ideal to have electric cars, but we don't. We have somebody that's invested very heavily in gas cars here. And, you know, I think it's a viable business that would do well for not only the citizens, the direct citizens of the town of Yarmouth and taxpayers, but also those people that we encourage to come down that don't own a place down here. Because I'll bet you dollars to donuts, many of the people that now have spoken are themselves are likely not natives to this peninsula. They've really relocated here after coming down and retiring or moving their family down because of the beautiful beaches, the wonderful entertainment it provides year-round, and particularly in the summertime. So it's a balancing, you know, it's a balancing of these things. And that's why I very seldom have sympathy for anybody that moves into a residential area abutting a business district. Those are the realities. I mean, business is business. I do agree absolutely with the comments tonight that the new kid on the block in terms of consideration of problems is that the sound into that hotel. And for that reason alone, if called to vote on it this evening, I will vote against this petition. Now, there are alternatives. Since sound is the overwhelming concern, I think it's up to the petitioner whether or not they want to ask for something that deals with that sound and present additional evidence at some later time. And if not, that's fine as well. We'll vote on it tonight and bring this matter to a conclusion. So to the petitioner, I ask, what do you want us to do?
Mr. Chairman, we would like to request a continuance and we will look into the sound study.
Well, we're not going to make the continuance long, nor are we going to make it short. The last time we tried to make it accommodating very quickly to this evening. And I want to say, having heard all of the noise issues on May 11th, I'm somewhat befuddled by the fact that we as a board have to tell the petitioner how to go about solving the concerns of legitimate concerns of neighbors. And, you know, so if you need time to get sound meters out there, and if the other board members agree to a continuance, then so be it. But, you know, it's on you to do it, not us.
We understand that,
So
Mr.
if
Chairman.
that's the case, when can we get it on if the board should vote in favor of a continuance, Dolores, please?
You could put it on June 22nd as a fifth one?
Okay, anybody prepared to make a motion in light of the request of the petitioner?
I'd like to inquire, if I may, to the petitioner relative to the particular noise study that they're planning on doing. How are you proposed to do a noise study? Are you going to do a noise study with 13 go-karts going at the same time? If that's what you're proposing to run, or how many you are?
8, right?
Yeah, we proposed 8 running carts at a time. I would take Attorney Semi's information according to him and what he just said at this meeting, that allegedly I can get it done in 2 weeks. So if he's willing to give me all this information that he has stated to this board, that he has numerous people that have done this, it can be done in less than 2 weeks, I would be more than happy to take that information from him and go forward with that.
Well,
In other words,
would
using a
hope that he would.
professional.
I would hope that he would, but I don't think we should set the parameters on what a noise study should entail. I think it should be something that is set by the engineer, noise engineer, and not by this board.
I'll tell you what I would be looking for. I would be looking for the noise decibel of the go-kart that you have at maximum speed times 8. That's what I would be looking for. And I would be looking for how much that noise projected and how far your track is, those hotel rooms to the left.
That is what they
And what the decibel level is when it hits that building. So I'm not sure who you're gonna hire to do that, but that's what I would be looking at on any report.
If I could, just to clarify, noise doesn't quite work in that manner. When you have one vehicle that generates 70 decibels of noise, 8 vehicles don't create 560 decibels of noise. It doesn't work in that manner, but we will get an engineer who does sound, and he will tell us what to do. So
Well, you know what? You know what? There's a noise meter that can go right inside the hotel room if the abutter that had concerns about noise wouldn't permit. And, 8 running at high speed, not sitting there at idle.
Yep.
Might want to consider that in the report, but we're not here to dictate to you what's in the report. We're here to have you, if you're interested, produce to us a report that allays the concerns of not only this board, but as well, hopefully, some of the neighbors. Okay?
We will, Mr. Chairman, we would request a continuance to the June 22nd meeting if that was possible.
Anybody prepared to make a motion on that request?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. Does the board care to have any discussion before moving along to a vote? All right, subject to an extension agreement being executed, we'll do it by roll call, please. Mr. Igo?
Aye.
Mr. Mintani?
Aye.
Mr. Frapery?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Look forward to seeing you in June.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
members.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, I see that we have an agenda item of discussing the parameters of a zoning administrator. I am
Excuse
not
us.
able to sit in that discussion, and I'd ask that it go over.
Always, please.
Yeah, I think we should table that till such time as we could schedule a workshop between the members and have a real full back and forth as to what we would like the zoning administrator to do, what those powers and what those limitations would be.
Okay, but I think, maybe that ought to be on some night when we have 2 easy petitions and can set the time aside for a detailed and important discussion. I think Jay raised it, and I think that irrespective of whether he wants it, anybody else wants it, I think would be wonderful to have, as it was when Mr. Sarnowski held that position.
I'm sorry,
So
Steve.
anybody prepared to make a motion to adjourn?
So
Steve, just before you do, I just was curious. I couldn't really hear you. I'm sorry.
This was the zoning administrator
Yes.
discussion that's being tabled.
So was Sean's proposal to have a separate meeting? Is that what it was, or?
At some point, I think we should have a discussion and then decide how we want to proceed after that. I mean, we can have an informal discussion after a meeting that's not so busy and full, and then we can decide, maybe have a workshop or something.
Okay.
We
I
can
just
do-
would like to
we can
move
do it
forward on it.
outside of the boardroom too, if one wishes to have it in a more informal setting too.
All right.
Well, Jay had something he'd like to say. Go ahead, Jay, please.
I just was hoping we might be able to schedule that in the not too distant future, so one way or the other. So that's all.
Sure.
I agree.
I mean, faster the better. The decision's made that we have one or we don't. We've operated for many years without one. but I know the benefit of it when we had one. So it'd be nice to get a detailed discussion. I think the only issue is what are the parameters, right? Isn't that it?
That's it, yeah.
Is it the decision-making, unilateral decision-making authority?
Yeah, no, because I agree with Sean, separate's fine, because I just think we have a lot going on right now, so we end up going late, and it's hard to do it during the regular meeting, so if we could schedule something
Well,
else.
I'm fine attending any meeting y'all want on that, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, anybody prepared to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is a second?
I'll second.
All right, on a voice vote, please, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Nay? Good, it's unanimously approved. We'll see y'all at the next meeting.
Good night, all. Thank you.
Good night.